Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. Washington has reiterated its commitment to continue improving the US-Pakistan relationship. In a phone call with Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa, US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin discussed the mutual goals of security and stability in the region. They discussed the ongoing situation in Afghanistan and the bilateral defense relationship more broadly. The US says it's up to the Afghan security forces to defend their country after the Taliban captured a sixth provincial capital. At a press briefing, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the US military cannot do much if the Afghan forces are not putting up a fight. Meanwhile, US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is heading to Qatar to press the Taliban to stop their offensive. North Korea has warned that the US and South Korea will face even greater security threats for going ahead with scheduled joint military drills. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong denounced the drills as the most vivid expression of Washington's hostile policy towards Pyongyang. This comes as the US and South Korea begin their preliminary military drills today. Brazil's daily COVID-19 cases and deaths continue to drop as it reported over 12,000 new infections and over 400 fatalities. In Pakistan, 86 more people have lost their lives to the virus, while nearly 3,900 tested positive in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 203 million people so far. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. Washington has reiterated its commitment to continue improving the US-Pakistan relationship. US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin spoke with Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa over phone. In a readout of the call, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said Austin and Bajwa discussed the mutual goals of security and stability in the region. They discussed the ongoing situation in Afghanistan and the bilateral defense relationship more broadly. The Pentagon chief expressed his interest in building upon the multiple shared interests in the region. The US says it's up to the Afghan security forces to defend their country after the Taliban captured a sixth provincial capital. At a press briefing, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the US military cannot do much if the Afghan forces are not putting up a fight. More in this report.
As the deadline for the withdrawal of the foreign troops from Afghanistan nears, the Taliban keep making major advances across the country. In the overnight raids, the group claims to have captured the last remaining army base in the Nijrab district of Kapisa province. The Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid also claimed to make advances in the Puli Kumari city of Baghlan province. However, Pentagon spokesperson Kirby said that the security situation in Afghanistan is not going in the right direction. He said that the United States is deeply concerned about the trend, but the Afghan security forces have the capability to fight the insurgent group.
The Secretary shares the concern of the international community about the security situation in Afghanistan, which is clearly not going in the right direction. The Secretary continues to believe that the Afghan forces have the capability, they have the capacity to make a big difference on the battlefield.
Kirby also called on the Afghan security apparatus to use the superior military edge that it holds over the Taliban.
They have an air force the Taliban doesn't. They have modern weaponry and organizational skills the Taliban doesn't. They have superior numbers. to the Taliban. And so, again, they have the advantages, and it's really now their time to use those advantages.
However, in an interview, Afghanistan's former president Hamid Karzai said it was the United States military activity in Afghanistan in the name of fighting the Taliban that was causing immense suffering to the Afghan civilians. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is heading to Qatar to press the Taliban to stop their offensive. In another development, Germany has rejected calls for returning soldiers to Afghanistan after the Taliban took Kunduz, where German troops were deployed for a decade.
For more on this, we have with us Arshad Yousafzai, a political analyst from Peshawar. So thank you for your time. Mr. Yousafzai, with the situation in Afghanistan in view, what does the Pentagon reaching out to Pakistan's military signify?
Well, it is an important development between the U.S. and Pakistan, and it seems that the U.S. has realized that keeping Pakistan in the loop is important. If they keep out Pakistan, peace cannot be brought into Afghanistan. It is impossible without involving Pakistan, because Pakistan has so much stakes in Afghanistan, and it has still some influence over the fighters there. So I believe the U.S. has realized now that they must work with Pakistan, that Pakistan should be involved in a peace process in Afghanistan.
Right. Mr. Yousafzai, if Afghan forces are superior in both military tech and in numbers, why are they losing ground to the Taliban?
Well, I don't think they are superior in number, and I don't think they are, able enough to fight. In fact, one of the reasons the U.S. had long demanded, the U.S. was asking the Afghan forces to defend their country. The U.S. and other countries, their foreign donors, had invested heavily in arming and training the Afghan forces. They are well equipped, but still they are failing against the Taliban. It seems that they are not willing to fight the Taliban, and no one else should be blamed for their failures. The government should realize, the Afghan government, that they need to talk to their army, that their army should be the one to fight, and they should be the one to blame, not other countries.
Mr. Yousafzai, is the statement by the U.S. that it's up to the Afghan security forces to defend their country a clear indictment of the Kabul administration?
Yes, I think it is a clear sign that the U.S. is fed up with the Afghan administration. The U.S. has helped in creation of the Afghan army. It has trained it and it has equipped it. The Afghan army is very well trained. It is very well equipped compared to Taliban, who are fighting barehanded with AK-47s. They are ill-trained, and still the Taliban are making progresses very rapidly. The Afghan government is blaming Pakistan for its failures, and the U.S. believes that it's time that they should stop that now, and that they should concentrate on their own failures.
Right. Mr. Yousafzai, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad is once again on a mission to pursue the Taliban to stop their advances. What leverage does the U.S. have on the Taliban, and what can Washington offer them?
Well, they should first realize that are the Taliban going to listen to them now, after they clearly violated the peace agreement, or the Doha peace agreement, so many times, that they bombarded cities, that they tried to bombard the Taliban forces. The Taliban are not happy with that. The Taliban are not happy with the role of the U.S. embassy in Kabul. But still, politically, they are so mature now that they would sit with Khalilzad, they would listen to him. It does not guarantee that the Taliban would listen and agree to whatever he says. They would still have their say, and they are now in a better position to influence their say.
Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, thank you for speaking to Indus News. And now we're moving on. North Korea has warned that the U.S. and South Korea will face even greater security threats for going ahead with scheduled joint military drills. This comes as the U.S. and South Korea begin their preliminary military drills today. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong denounced the drills as the most vivid expression of the U.S. hostile policy towards Pyongyang. In a statement, Kim said the exercise threatens the North Korean people and raises tensions in the region. She termed Washington's talk of diplomacy a hypocritical cover for aggression on the Korean peninsula. The North Korean leader noted peace will only be possible if the U.S. dismantled its military force in South Korea. She said Pyongyang will boost its absolute deterrence to counter the ever-increasing U.S. military threat. The U.S. has slammed Iran and the Houthis for the prolonging Yemen crisis. U.S. Special Envoy to Yemen Tim Lennon-King said the militia is preventing a ceasefire through their military offensive in Marib region. Talking to reporters, Lennon-King accused Iran of backing the Houthis, saying it is not ready to play a constructive role. He termed the situation in Yemen dire and one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. However, he announced to provide $165 million in new humanitarian assistance for the country. He said Washington is supporting efforts to prevent famine, which is becoming a very real threat. The U.S. has warned Iran that it will have to pay the price for a deadly attack on an Israeli-operated tanker off the coast of Oman. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was addressing a meeting of the UN Security Council on maritime security. Blinken said Iran's provocative behavior threatens freedom of navigation and international shipping. He urged the international community to hold Iran accountable for its actions. The top U.S. diplomat warned a failure to do so will fuel impunity and embolden others to disregard the maritime order. The U.S. and China have traded barbs at the UN Security Council over the South China Sea. Both sides leveled accusations and blamed each other for threatening peace and stability in the region. Addressing a meeting on maritime security, China accused the U.S. of stirring up trouble by sending military vessels and aircraft into the territory. Beijing's Deputy Envoy to UN, Dai Bing, called the U.S. biggest threat to peace and stability in the South China Sea. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned a conflict will have serious global consequences for security and commerce. Blinken said Washington is concerned over what he called provocative actions to advance unlawful maritime claims. Brazil's daily COVID-19 cases and deaths continue to drop as it reported over 12,000 new infections and over 400 fatalities. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 203 million people so far. Details in the following report. The Delta variant of coronavirus causing new highs in daily infections and deaths is prompting nations to ramp up containment measures all over again. In the U.S., the Defense Department is seeking presidential approval to make coronavirus vaccines mandatory for all members of its military. COVID-19 hospitalizations continue to surge in America's deep South states, while intensive care units near capacity in multiple locations. Meanwhile, the number of children hospitalized with COVID-19 is also rising across the country, a trend health experts attribute to the Delta variant.
It is considered a fourth wave here, and it's due to the Delta variant, plain and simple. The Delta variant is the most contagious variant of COVID yet known. This Delta variant now comprises well over 90% of our cases in children and adolescents.
In France, an extension to health pass has come into effect after the fourth weekend of massive countrywide protests. The Italian police shut down several groups on the Telegram app where users were selling fake health passes. Meanwhile, a new study has suggested that the UK is on course to hoard up to 210 million spare vaccines by the end of the year. As Australia's largest city struggles to contain its worst outbreak, harsher restrictions have stoked resentment.
But people are going through a really tough time, both financially and mentally. And the only way out of this is together. Together we'll come out of this a much stronger community. As I said, it's mate, people waking up every morning, police helicopters. I got a call last night at midnight, a message at midnight last night with someone complaining that their kids can't go to sleep because there's a helicopter on top of their house flying very low.
This comes as a New South Wales state reports the biggest daily rise in cases. Meanwhile, in Iran, one person is dying with COVID-19 every 2 minutes as the region's worst-hit nation reported a record daily toll of fatalities. Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has topped 24,000 after 86 people died over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the virus infected over 3,800 people overnight. The ministry said the caseload has crossed 1,075,000 mark. It said over 967,000 people have recovered from the disease so far. The ministry added that Pakistan's positivity rate has risen to nearly 8%. Over 37 million people have been partially vaccinated, while over 7 million have received both jabs of the inoculation. Iraq's Foreign Minister Dr. Fawad Hussain will arrive in Islamabad on an official visit on the 11th of August. He will be arriving on the invitation of his Pakistani counterpart Shah Mahmood Qureshi. The Foreign Office said too will deliberate on bilateral relations and cooperation in various fields. It added that the Iraqi Foreign Minister will also call on the Pakistani leadership. The visit comes in the backdrop of a number of ministerial-level visits from both sides in the past few months. Earlier, Foreign Minister Qureshi visited Iraq in May, and further high-level exchanges are planned in the coming months. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Lebanon, at least 3 people have been killed as tensions over fuel scarcity descended into deadly violence involving guns, knives and hand grenades. In a statement, the army said 1 man was killed in the northern Dania region and 2 others in Tripoli in violence. Lebanon's currency has lost more than 90% of its value in less than 2 years, causing shortages of fuel, electricity and medicines. The crisis deepened this week, prompting long lines at petrol stations. Protests also continue across the country, with political elite in deadlock over the formation of a new cabinet. At least 8 people have died and 5 others are injured after a boat capsized off the coast of Beihai in South China's Guangxi-Zhuhang region. The vessel capsized while returning from a fishing trip. Authorities said the boat was carrying more than 30 people. They said search and rescue efforts are underway. Europe's tallest active volcano in Italy, Mount Etna, puts on a spectacular display of lava during an eruption. More in this report. Etna has been lighting up the night sky regularly with explosions, lava fountains and ash plumes, dazzling onlookers and waking up locals with its roars. Lava flowed down the side of the 3,300-meter-high mountain. Black volcanic ash and big rocks covered streets and nearby towns after the eruption. Etna, which is located above the Sicilian town of Catania, often erupts but rarely causes damage. The camera team filming the images said eruptions continued for more than 5 hours. It is believed to have the longest written record of eruptions than any other volcano, with its first recorded observation going back to 425 BC. Although the eruptions themselves do not put the local population at risk, residents do have to live with the ash showers. Mexico's indigenous communities descended on the capital Zocalo Square to mark the International Day of the Indigenous People. According to country's Census Bureau, there are some 17 million indigenous citizens in the country. More in this report. Mexico's indigenous people wore devil masks, performed the dance of the devils, showing the diversity of their culture. The folk devil dance symbolizes the escape of African slaves from Spanish masters.
The reason for this event is to make the indigenous presence in Mexico City visible, for our rights to be recognized by Mexico City government. That is the reason to make us visible. For 12 years now, we have been making ourselves visible annually in this event.
Another indigenous group performed the Chinilos with a distinctive white mask and extravagant costumes. According to locals, their performance mimics the complexion and appearance of Spanish colonizers of the colonial era.
It is very important for us, and especially in Mexico City, because it's losing a lot of its culture. Children don't want to speak an indigenous language because they are embarrassed. So this festival is for that, so that children don't feel embarrassed. It's culture. To preserve what we have to look after it.
Although Mexico has adopted the UN declarations on the rights of indigenous people, the country's indigenous people are among its most vulnerable. According to Mexico's National Council for the Evaluation of Social Development Policy, nearly 70% of the indigenous population lives in poverty. Most stocks in Asia Pacific are trading cautiously higher. South Korean game developer Krafton plunged in its debut while COVID concerns weighed on investors' sentiment regionally. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is leading the gains, rising over 0.5%. Stocks in mainland China, Australia's ASX 200 and the Nikkei 225 in Japan have also edged up fractionally. However, Seoul's Kospi has dipped over 0.5%. In the Kashmir Premier League, the Muzaffarabad Tigers will face the Kotli Lions in Game 8 of the mega event today. The Bak Stallions and the Overseas Warriors will lock horns later in the day. In Game 7, the Rawalkot Hawks beat Muzaffarabad Tigers by 1 run after a nail-biting contest. Half-centuries by Hussain Talat and Ahmed Shahzad led Hawks to post a handsome total of 175. In response, the Tigers managed to score 174 runs for the loss of 8 wickets. The win lifted the Hawks to the top of league standings with 5 points. Earlier, the Mirpur Royals defeated the Overseas Warriors by 4 wickets. Bangladesh beat Australia by 60 runs in the final 2020 to win the 5-match series 4-1. Australia were bowled out for just 62, chasing a target of 123, their lowest ever total across limited overs cricket. Shakib Al Hasan led with a haul of 4 for 9, with Mohammad Saifuddin grabbing 3 for 12. Matthew Wade top scored for the visitors with 22 runs, while Ben McDermott added 17. Earlier, Mohammad Naim's 23 helped Bangladesh set a 123-run target. Nathan Ellis and Dan Christian took 2 wickets each for the Kangaroos. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.